There's a moment many adults face, a moment of profound realization. You're standing in your own life, feeling completely lost, like you're waiting for someone to tell you what to do, to guide you, to care for you the way you needed as a child. But nobody's coming. Here's the truth that changes everything. You don't need to wait anymore, because you already possess the capacity to become the parent you never had, or the parent you needed but didn't receive consistently. The psychological community calls this self-reparenting. It's not a trendy concept. It's a clinically validated approach to healing developmental wounds and building internal security. Research from the Harvard Center on the Developing Child shows that our brains remain neuroplastic throughout life. This means we can literally rewire the neural pathways formed by inadequate early caregiving. Dr. John Bowlby spent 40 years studying how children develop emotional security. His attachment theory revealed something revolutionary. We don't instinctively know how to care for ourselves. We learn it through how we were cared for. When that care was inconsistent, absent, or harmful, we carry those patterns into adulthood. But here's where hope enters the equation. Those same neural mechanisms that encoded dysfunction can encode healing. You can become the stable, compassionate caregiver your younger self desperately needed. This isn't about blaming your parents. It's about taking radical responsibility for your own emotional development. Today, we're exploring 8 scientifically grounded strategies for self-reparenting. Each one builds internal security. Each one rewires old patterns. Each one transforms how you experience your own life. Let's begin. Imagine a child living in chaos, never knowing when meals will happen, when bedtime comes, when the adults will be available or unavailable. That child develops a hypervigilant nervous system, always scanning for threats, never able to relax into safety. Many adults recreate this exact pattern. No consistent sleep schedule, irregular meals, work bleeding into rest time, chaos masquerading as flexibility. Your nervous system doesn't experience this as freedom. It experiences it as danger. Neuroscience research from Stanford reveals something crucial. Your brain has limited decision-making capacity each day. Every choice depletes this cognitive resource. When you lack routine, you're forcing yourself to make hundreds of unnecessary micro-decisions. Should I eat now? Should I sleep? Should I work? This creates decision fatigue. Your willpower reservoir runs dry. You default to impulsive choices because your executive function is exhausted. But watch what happens when you establish consistent routines. You wake at the same time, eat at predictable intervals, create clear boundaries between work and rest. Your nervous system begins recognizing patterns. The constant scanning for threat diminishes. You conserve massive amounts of mental energy. Think about how you'd care for a child. You'd create structure because children thrive on predictability. Consistent bedtimes, regular meals, clear expectations. This isn't restriction, it's the foundation of security. A study from the University of Minnesota Institute of Child Development tracked families for 20 years. Children with consistent routines showed significantly better emotional regulation in adulthood. They experienced less anxiety, better stress management, stronger executive function. You can create this for yourself right now. Start with sleep. Choose a consistent bedtime and wake time. Honor it like an appointment with your most important client, because it is. Your future self is that client. Add meal structure next. 3 regular eating times. You're not being rigid. You're being responsible. You're telling your nervous system, I've got you. You're safe. You're cared for. This foundation changes everything that follows. Because security comes from predictability, and predictability comes from structure you consciously create. Here's a question most people avoid. If you had a child, would you send them into the world disheveled, unwashed, wearing dirty clothes? Of course not. Because physical presentation communicates something profound. It says you matter. You're worthy of care and attention. Yet countless adults neglect their own physical presentation. Not because they're lazy, because somewhere deep inside, they don't believe they deserve the effort. Research in social psychology identifies something called enclothed cognition. The clothes you wear literally alter your psychological state. A study from Northwestern University demonstrated this clearly. Participants wearing a doctor's white coat showed increased attention and careful thinking. The physical act of dressing influenced their cognitive performance. This isn't vanity. It's neuroscience. When you care for your appearance, you're sending powerful signals to your own brain. Signals about worth, about maturity, about self-respect. Think about the morning routine of someone who values themselves. They shower with intention, choose clean, appropriate clothes, groom their hair. These aren't superficial acts. They're declarations of self-worth performed daily. Compare this to rolling out of bed 5 minutes before obligations begin, throwing on yesterday's clothes, skipping basic hygiene because nobody will notice anyway. Your subconscious notices. It interprets this as, I'm not worth caring for. A longitudinal study from Yale Child Study Center examined self-care behaviors across development. Adults who maintained consistent grooming and presentation standards reported higher self-esteem, better professional outcomes, stronger relationship satisfaction. The mechanism is simple. External care reinforces internal worth. When you treat yourself like someone valuable, your brain starts believing it. Start small. Set out clean clothes the night before. Allow 15 extra minutes for morning hygiene. Maintain basic grooming standards even on days you're staying home, especially on days you're staying home. Because you're not doing this for others. You're doing it for yourself. You're acting as the parent who says, let's make sure you're presentable. Because you deserve to feel confident and put together. This daily practice accumulates. Each morning becomes a small ceremony of self-respect, and over months, these small ceremonies rewire your self-concept fundamentally. Your environment speaks to your nervous system constantly. Every cluttered surface, every pile of unwashed dishes, every disorganized space, they're all broadcasting messages. The UCLA Center for Everyday Lives of Families conducted comprehensive research on home environments. They found direct correlation between household clutter and cortisol levels. More chaos in the environment meant more stress hormones in the body. Consistently, your brain processes environmental disorder as unfinished business, as tasks requiring attention. Even when you're not consciously thinking about the mess, your subconscious is tracking it, creating background anxiety, depleting mental resources. Think about the question through a parenting lens. Would you let a child live in a chaotic, dirty environment? Would you think that acceptable for their development and well-being? You intuitively understand that children need clean, organized spaces. They need to know where things belong. They need environments that support calm and focus rather than generating constant overstimulation. You need the same thing. Your adult brain requires the same environmental support. Perhaps even more, because you're managing complex responsibilities that demand clear thinking. Research from Princeton University's Neuroscience Institute used fMRI scans to study this. When participants viewed organized versus cluttered spaces, their brain activity showed dramatic differences. Organized environments allowed better focus. Cluttered spaces created measurable cognitive interference. Creating order isn't about perfectionism. It's about removing obstacles to mental clarity. Start with high-impact spaces. Your bedroom, your workspace. The kitchen. Implement a simple rule. Every item needs a home. When you use something, it returns to that home. Not someday. Immediately. This prevents accumulation of disorder. Spend 10 minutes before bed doing a reset. Dishes washed or in the dishwasher. Surfaces cleared. Tomorrow's clothes selected. You're creating a clean slate for the next day. You're acting as the parent who ensures the child wakes to order rather than chaos. The transformation isn't immediate, but over weeks, you'll notice something shifting. Your baseline anxiety decreases. Your ability to focus improves. Your sense of control over your life strengthens because environmental order creates psychological order. When your external world reflects care and attention, your internal world begins to stabilize. This is practical self-reparenting. This is how you build security through your daily environment. No human being was designed for isolation. Our nervous systems developed to function within supportive communities. Research across decades confirms this. Strong social connections increase longevity, strengthen immune function, reduce depression and anxiety risk. Yet many adults maintain relationships out of habit, obligation, or fear of being alone. They spend time with people who diminish them, who mock their aspirations, who drain their emotional energy. Here's the parenting question. If you had a child, would you encourage them to spend time with people who consistently hurt them? Who made them feel small? Who pulled them toward destructive behaviors? You'd protect that child fiercely. You'd teach them to recognize unhealthy dynamics, to set boundaries, to choose relationships that support their growth rather than stunting it. Do the same for yourself. Family systems theory, developed by Murray Bowen, explains how relationship patterns perpetuate across generations. Dysfunctional connections don't just affect you in the moment. They reinforce neural pathways of unworthiness, anxiety, and insecurity. A longitudinal study from Harvard followed participants for 75 years. The single strongest predictor of life satisfaction wasn't wealth, career success, or physical health. It was relationship quality. People with warm, supportive connections thrived. Those with toxic or absent relationships struggled regardless of other advantages. This means your social choices are literally shaping your life trajectory. Every person you spend time with either adds to your growth or subtracts from it. There's no neutral ground. Audit your relationships honestly. Who leaves you feeling energized? Who consistently drains you? Who supports your development? Who subtly undermines it? This isn't about becoming ruthlessly selective or abandoning everyone imperfect. It's about recognizing patterns. Some relationships require boundaries. Some require distance. Some require complete endings. The parent inside you knows this. That wise part recognizes that protection sometimes means saying no to harmful connections, even when those connections feel familiar, even when leaving them feels scary. Start creating intentional distance from relationships that harm you. Reduce contact, stop initiating, create space for better connections to emerge. Because when you stop filling your life with people who diminish you, you create room for people who celebrate you. Simultaneously, invest in relationships that nourish you. Schedule regular time with people who inspire growth, who listen without judgment, who want your success as much as their own. This is active self-reparenting. You're creating the supportive social environment that perhaps you never experienced as a child. You're building the community that helps you thrive rather than just survive. Social media has weaponized comparison. Every scroll presents curated highlight reels. Everyone appears more successful, attractive, and fulfilled. The constant exposure creates a toxic psychological dynamic. Research on social comparison theory shows the mechanism clearly. When you consistently compare yourself to others, especially upward comparisons to people seemingly doing better, you damage your self-esteem. You increase anxiety and depression symptoms. You create a sense of inadequacy that pervades your entire self-concept. Think about parenting again. Imagine constantly comparing your child to other children, pointing out how the neighbor's kid is smarter, more athletic, better behaved, more accomplished. What would this do to that child's sense of self? It would devastate them. They'd internalize the message that they're fundamentally insufficient. They'd develop chronic anxiety about measuring up. They'd lose connection to their own unique strengths and path. You're doing this to yourself. Every time you measure your progress against someone else's timeline, every time you judge your worth by external standards, every time you feel diminished because someone else achieved something you haven't. Studies from Stanford Center for Compassion and Altruism demonstrate something powerful. Self-compassion, treating yourself with the kindness you'd offer a struggling child, produces better outcomes than self-criticism. People high in self-compassion show greater resilience, better emotional regulation, stronger motivation for personal growth. The mechanism seems counterintuitive. doesn't harsh self-judgment motivate improvement? Research says no. Self-criticism activates threat responses in your nervous system. It triggers shame. Shame doesn't motivate growth. It motivates hiding and self-protection. Self-compassion activates different neural pathways. It engages the caregiving system, the same system that helps parents remain patient with struggling children. This system supports learning, growth, and resilience. Practice this actively. When you notice comparison arising, pause. Ask yourself what you'd say to a child in your situation. You wouldn't say, "You're pathetic for not being further along." You'd say, "You're doing your best." Growth takes time. Every small step forward matters. Say those things to yourself, not as empty affirmations, but as genuine recognition of your humanity. You're walking a unique path, with unique challenges, unique resources, unique timing. Your journey doesn't need to match anyone else's. It needs to authentically reflect your growth, your healing, your development. Celebrate progress by your own standards. Acknowledge your efforts. Recognize how far you've actually come. This shift from comparison to self-compassion is transformative. It removes the constant drain of measuring yourself against impossible standards. It allows you to focus energy on your actual development rather than performative achievement. You become your own compassionate parent, the one who sees your struggles and responds with understanding, the one who celebrates your small victories, the one who believes in your capacity for growth, regardless of how you compare to anyone else. Many adults never learned that they have the right to boundaries. They absorbed the message that their needs matter less than others' comfort. That saying no makes them selfish. That accommodation equals goodness. This creates a life of chronic boundary violations, of being walked over, of silent resentment building because you can't advocate for yourself, of relationships built on your self-abandonment. Research on assertiveness training shows clear outcomes. People who establish and maintain healthy boundaries report higher self-esteem, better relationship satisfaction, lower anxiety and depression. They're not being aggressive. They're being appropriately self-protective. The parenting question cuts through confusion immediately. If someone mistreated your child, would you intervene? Would you allow continued harm because intervention might be uncomfortable? No, you'd step in decisively. You'd make clear that your child deserves respect, that violations have consequences, that protection isn't negotiable. Do this for yourself. When someone crosses a line, address it directly, not with aggression, but with clarity. That doesn't work for me. I need you to stop doing that. If this continues, I'll have to create distance. You're not being difficult. You're being a responsible adult, one who recognizes that allowing mistreatment teaches people to mistreat you. Boundaries aren't mean. They're honest communication about what you will and won't accept. Studies from the University of Minnesota show that boundary setting improves relationships, not damages them, because healthy relationships require mutual respect. When you allow violations, you create resentment. That resentment poisons connection far more than clear boundaries ever could. Some people will resist your boundaries. They'll call you selfish, difficult, changed. Let them. Their discomfort with your boundaries reveals that they benefited from your lack of them. That's information about them, not about you. Anyone who truly cares about your well-being will respect reasonable boundaries. They might need time to adjust, but they'll ultimately appreciate your clarity, because boundaries make relationships cleaner and more sustainable. Start small. Notice when someone asks something that creates internal resistance. Instead of automatically saying yes, pause. Say, "Let me think about that and get back to you." This creates space to evaluate whether the request works for you. Practice declining requests that don't serve your well-being. Use simple language. "I can't make that work." No elaborate explanations required. No justifications, just clear communication. You're reparenting yourself by teaching the lesson many never learned in childhood. You matter. Your needs matter. Your time and energy matter. Protecting those things isn't selfish. It's essential for sustainable adult functioning. The voice inside your head might be your cruelest critic. constantly pointing out failures, magnifying mistakes, predicting disaster, speaking to you in ways you'd never speak to another human being. This internal critic often echoes early experiences: parents who were harsh, teachers who were dismissive, peers who were cruel. You internalized those voices, made them your own. Now they run on autopilot, creating constant psychological suffering. Research on self-talk demonstrates its profound impact. Positive self-talk improves performance, reduces anxiety, strengthens resilience. It's not about denial or toxic positivity. It's about realistic, compassionate internal communication. Think about parenting. Would you speak to a learning child the way you speak to yourself? When they made a mistake, would you say, "You're worthless. You always mess everything up. You'll never succeed at anything"? No caring parent would dream of it. Yet this is exactly how many adults speak to themselves, creating internal environments of constant psychological abuse, then wondering why they struggle with confidence and motivation. Becoming your own parent means changing this dialogue fundamentally. When you notice harsh self-talk, pause. Ask what you'd say to a child in your situation. That becomes your new script. Made a mistake at work. Instead of "I'm an idiot," try "I made an error. I'm learning from this." Everyone makes mistakes sometimes. Same situation, completely different psychological impact. Studies from the field of cognitive behavioral therapy show this practice literally rewires neural pathways. Repeated positive self-talk creates new thought patterns. Over time, the compassionate voice becomes more automatic than the critical one. Implement this systematically. When you catch negative self-talk, write it down. Then write what you'd say to a friend in that situation. Use that friendlier version. This process makes implicit thoughts explicit. It allows you to consciously choose different responses. Celebrate small wins explicitly. "I handled that well. I'm proud of how I managed that challenge. I showed up even when it was hard." These acknowledgments build self-esteem brick by brick. You're creating internal security, the kind that comes from having someone in your corner, someone who believes in you, someone who offers encouragement when things are hard. That someone is you, the parent you're becoming to yourself. Guilt and shame are different emotions. Guilt says, "I did something bad." Shame says, "I am bad." Guilt can motivate repair. Shame only paralyzes. Many adults carry shame about past mistakes like permanent burdens, unable to forgive themselves, convinced they don't deserve peace, believing that suffering is appropriate penance. This is not justice. It's self-torture, and it prevents the growth and healing you actually need. Research on self-forgiveness shows its psychological necessity. People who practice self-forgiveness demonstrate better mental health outcomes, lower depression and anxiety, reduced risk of harmful behaviors, greater capacity for meaningful change. The parenting lens clarifies this. If your child made a serious mistake, would you demand they carry guilt forever? Would you bring it up constantly? Refuse to see their growth beyond that moment? A healthy parent corrects, explains consequences, creates opportunities for repair, then releases the mistake, allows the child to move forward with lessons learned, but without permanent condemnation. You need this same approach with yourself. Whatever you've done, whatever mistakes you've made, you're still deserving of compassion, of growth, of second chances, of peace. Self-forgiveness isn't excusing harmful behavior. It's recognizing your humanity, understanding that all humans make mistakes. That mistakes are how we learn. That carrying permanent shame serves no constructive purpose. Studies from Stanford show that self-forgiveness actually increases accountability. When people stop drowning in shame, they gain capacity to examine their behavior honestly, to make genuine amends, to implement real changes. Practice this actively. Identify something you're still punishing yourself for. Ask what you've learned from it, what you do differently, how you've already changed. Then consciously choose to release the ongoing punishment. Say it aloud if helpful. "I forgive myself for this. I've learned. I've grown. I'm choosing to move forward." This isn't magical thinking. It's a deliberate decision to stop re-traumatizing yourself with past events. You might need to repeat this many times. Forgiveness isn't always a single moment. Sometimes it's a practice, a daily choice to treat yourself with mercy rather than condemnation. This is deep self-reparenting. You're giving yourself what perhaps no one ever modeled: the grace to be imperfect, the space to learn, the permission to grow beyond your mistakes. Self-reparenting isn't a weekend project. It's a fundamental reorganization of how you relate to yourself. These 8 practices: creating routine, maintaining appearance, organizing environment, choosing relationships, releasing comparison, setting boundaries, changing self-talk, and practicing forgiveness. They work together. Each one supports the others. Each one strengthens your internal foundation. Start with 1 or 2 practices. Master those before adding more. Sustainable change happens through consistent small actions, not dramatic overnight transformations. Track your progress. Notice when you catch yourself reverting to old patterns. Don't judge it. Just notice and redirect. You're building new neural pathways. That takes time and repetition. Expect resistance. Your old patterns feel familiar. Even when they're harmful, they're known. New patterns feel uncomfortable initially. That's normal. Push through the discomfort. The other side holds freedom. Remember the fundamental truth: you don't need to wait for someone else to care for you properly. You already have everything required to become your own stable, loving, responsible parent. The practices outlined here give you the roadmap. The daily implementation creates the transformation. You deserve the care you're learning to give yourself. You deserve security, compassion, protection, growth. You're no longer waiting for someone else to provide these things. You're taking radical responsibility for your own healing and development. This is your path forward. Not perfect, not easy, but absolutely possible. One day at a time, one choice at a time, one act of self-care at a time. You're building the internal parent you needed all along, and that changes absolutely everything.